This is such a great question to start off talking about these support and weaken ideas. Basically, first things first, we got to make sure that we understand what the question wants from us. In this case, which finding if true would most directly support the researcher's hypothesis. So support, it could be weaken. Not many of these questions are asking you to weaken the hypothesis, but we have to be careful because anytime we have a support, we're going to have a choice that probably weakens it. And anytime we have a weakened question, we're probably going to have a choice that supports. So if we don't read the question carefully, we might pick the wrong one just because we don't understand what they're asking for. So that's piece number one. But remember that all of these support and weaken questions are also going to basically just tell us what to focus on. So they say to focus on this person's hypothesis. There's going to be lots of detail in this passage, but somewhere they're going to very obviously say something like the researcher's hypothesis is, right? Might not use those exact words, but it's going to be that obvious and easy. So I'm going to read this passage, but I'm not going to try to understand it on any deep level. And you'll see why as we read it. It's very hard to understand, but if I get to the hypothesis, now I'm going to start to pay closer attention. Even still, though, I'm not trying to focus on details. I'm trying to just look at kind of the basic outline of what they're saying. So let's take a look. I'll try to highlight as I go what stands out to me. Although many transposons, DNA sequences that move within an organism's genome through shuffling or duplication, have become corrupted and inactive over time, those from the long interspersed nuclear elements line family appear to remain active in the genomes of some species. In humans, they are functionally important within the hippocampus, a brain structure that supports complex cognitive processes. When the results of molecular analysis of two species of octopus, an animal known for its intelligence, complex cognitive processes, were announced in 2022. The conformation of a line transposon in Octopus vulgaris and Octopus bimaculoides genomes prompted researchers to hypothesize that the transposon family is tied to a species' capacity for advanced cognition. So notice what I did, okay? First of all, they like I predicted, they just said something is the hypothesis, right? They just told us what to focus on. Now, they are very clearly telling us that the hypothesis has something to do with octopus and advanced cognition, okay? Now, by the time I got to the end, I had already kind of sensed that advanced cognition was a main theme, a dumb summary of this passage, because that idea had been repeated. And remember that, main ideas are repeated ideas. If something is important, they're going to say it again and again. Now, they'll likely do what they did here and use different phrases and different synonyms to make the same point. Complex cognitive processes, intelligence, advanced cognition. To me, those are the same thing. So, right, we do need kind of a decent enough vocabulary that we're able to make those connections, but there is no difference between those three ideas. They are all versions of the same thing, intelligence in an animal. So I don't know what to look for here. I don't know what the answer choice will be, but I know it's going to have something to do with intelligence in some way. So let's just see what we get in the choices. A, the line transposon in O. vulgaris and O. whatever genomes is active in an octopus brain structure that functions similarly to the human hippocampus. Okay, well, this has got a lot of things that kind of appeal to me, right? We're talking about octopus. I know we're just doing that, so that seems good. We're talking about the brains. We're talking about this transposon thing, but honestly, all of the choices are probably going to talk about that. That's why I wasn't highlighting at the beginning, is I knew that wasn't going to be what was important, right? I mean, it's the topic of the passage, but remember, what we are more interested in is what are they saying about that thing, right? I don't care what a transposon is. I don't care what the line, genome, or whatever it is. I'm not interested in learning about the science. What do they say about it? They seem to be making some sort of comparison, right? So they did talk about humans. They did talk about octopus. I'm a little nervous with the hippocampus. That seems like a very specific detail. But for now, I have enough things that I'm like, yeah, I vaguely remember this and it seems to be related, that I'd just be like, okay, let's just keep this choice in. Let's see what else happens, and maybe this is just it and I can move on. But let's take a look at B. The human genome contains multiple transposons from the line family that are all primarily active in the hippocampus. Well, this is missing a big piece, right? I thought we were just talking about octopus here, right? So why would if the hypothesis is about octopus, why would we support that hypothesis with a choice that doesn't mention octopuses at all, right? That seems like a big omission, right? So where is that idea about octopuses here, okay? That seems wrong. Now, I probably would cross this out because it seems like it's missing a big thing. If you were a little bit more nervous, you could keep it in, but this is the benefit of a dumb summary. In a dumb way, I know we're talking about octopuses, the choice isn't, so this is what sometimes I call the main character confusion, right? The main character of the passage, or at least the hypothesis, seems to be the octopus. Main character of this choice is humans, so that seems wrong. C, a consistent number of copies of line transposons is present across the genomes of most octopus species with few known corruptions. Lots of things bother me. Most octopus species, we talked about 2. 2 is not most, right? I'm assuming there's lots and lots of octopuses out there. I don't know. So to say most, that's one of those quantifier words. But it's not the only quantifier word in this choice, right? A consistent number of copies. Were we talking about the number of copies of whatever this genome thing is? I don't think so. It didn't seem like the number of it mattered. And few known corruptions, again, does it really seem like the number of corruptions is important? I know that they do become corrupted over time, but I don't remember them making a big deal about how the number of corruptions affects anything. So, and remember, this is a good example of something that is a trap answer in lots of different types of questions, but here, for these support and weaken questions, it still matters. Anytime we have choices that start to quantify things, we need to make sure the passage was also quantifying things. Otherwise, we have something we have no evidence for. So I would definitely eliminate C. D, ovogaris, and this other one I can't pronounce, have smaller brains than humans do relative to body size, but their genomes contain sequences from a wider variety of transposon families. So again, we have some quantifiers, right? A wider variety of transposon families, smaller brains. Maybe that's less about quantifying and more of a comparison, right? They were comparing humans and octopuses, or at least they talked about them both. Were they saying one was better or worse, bigger or smaller? I don't know. Now remember, with these support questions, we can also bring in information that wasn't explicitly in the passage. In fact, it's almost like what the whole point of the question is. But it should still be related in some way that we can point to something in the passage and say it's supporting this idea or it relates back to this idea. I don't really get that. And wider variety of transposon families. Did we talk about different types of transposons? There's this one family that we talk about. Why are we bringing in other types? Again, this is why quantifying is sometimes bad, is we're taking something and starting to count it when we weren't doing that in the passage. Another kind of trap that this reminds me of is the small to big trap, right? We have one example of a transposon family in the passage, and now the answer choice is trying to turn that into some big conclusion about all transposons or many transposons. Like, I don't have evidence of that. We're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to take one example and turn it into some big thing unless that's what the passage was doing. Honestly, I'd pick A here and move on. I really wouldn't go back, mostly because this is probably something that would appear in the hard module. I'd want to make sure I have enough time. I would bookmark it and say, if I have more time, I'd love to come back and focus on that word hippocampus, because that one thing, I didn't really understand how that related, and that's very specific. So I would move on because I'm at this point like 95% sure, and that's good enough. You can't worry from 95 to 100%. You got to just be like, all right, good enough for a smart bet, and odds are good I'm not getting it wrong. But this is why you bookmark things on your page when you're taking practice tests, in addition to bookmarking it in the Blue Book app, because the Blue Book app will not save the bookmark, but you need to know later on that you had a little bit less than perfect confidence on this question, and whether you got it right or wrong can help you determine whether that confidence was misplaced. But let's look at this. Let's look at this idea. I know I'm going on and on, but it's a great question. I really love this question. This idea of the hippocampus. How would I double check that that idea is right? I would go back and I'd be like, okay, well, do they talk about the hippocampus? Well, yes, they do. It's right here. So what they're saying in choice A is that these octopuses have this transposon. It's active in a brain structure that functions similarly to the hippocampus. Well, why would that be important, right? What are we actually comparing in the passage between the octopuses and the humans, right? We are saying, we already said this, that it's about the advanced cognition. Octopuses are smart. That's what we're trying to say, okay? You know what else is smart? Humans. Because, right, it talks about humans having complex cognitive processes, and it's being related to this transposon thing. So there's like basically three things that are all related. Humans, hippocampus, complex cognitive processes. Here we have octopus advanced cognition, and then we get this other piece of the puzzle here, the little triangle, in the choice, right? What they're saying is they don't have a hippocampus, but they have something that's similar to the hippocampus. The transposon thing is somehow related to that, and those both are somehow related to being smart, and being smart is similar in both humans and octopuses. Like, I don't get why it works. I don't care, but notice how we're able to kind of connect these pieces and notice similarities between octopuses and humans in many levels. They're both smart, they both have transposons, and now because of choice A, they both have a hippocampus or something similar. That's a lot of connections, and now I do understand why this word hippocampus was brought in. Please comment if you have questions. This is an awesome example of these support and weaken questions because it seems so hard when you focus on the science, but when you focus on the choices and move away from the passage, this becomes actually very, very easy. And it's because I know what trap answers tend to sound like. I know how to evaluate an answer choice, when to notice that something is off. And so my understanding of the passage is still pretty low, but my understanding of the choices was very high. And that's how I knew that choice A kind of just had to be right by process of elimination. But if I do need to prove it, I also have a tool that I can use going back to see if I can kind of dumb summary my way to proving that right. So hopefully that all makes sense to you, because that is basically the entire strategy for these very hard questions in a nutshell.